श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शंकरं लोकशंकरं. Friends, this is the concluding day, and without wasting time, I'll continue from the point where we left yesterday. And yesterday, with reference to Supremely Revered Holy Mother Sarada Devi, I told you that she has analyzed the problem beautifully. I will start from there again. One sannyasi asked her, is it not special this time that the Lord came to establish harmony of religions? She said, no, I don't feel that he came with a plan to establish harmony of religion. If you ask me speciality, it was Tyaga. It was Tyaga. And such Tyaga, renunciation, has never been seen or heard before. And then she said, my boy, what you say also is true. All the previous Mahapurushas have laid emphasis on some aspect of spiritual life or some aspect of God's experience, because of which other aspects became suppressed. This time it has not happened so. Because Sri Ramakrishna had nothing else to do but to live with God, he spent all 24 hours with God in as many forms as God can be experienced. And in that matter, I gave you another illustration. Sri Ramakrishna's illustration of the man who dyes clothes for people. And before him there is a tub and there is some liquid in that tub. Each person comes with his cloth and demands red, blue, yellow, blue, black, and he puts in the same tub and gives him the desired color. One person sitting near has not asked for any particular color. So this color man asks him, you have not said what color you want. He said, I want that color which is in your tub. Generally we hear this much and we appreciate very much that young man. And he is Swami Vivekananda. But the color man is Sri Ramakrishna himself. So, what is the link between Tyaga and this? I want to see God in this form is also assertion of I. My likes and dislikes have come into there. I want only God's Swarupa also is a limitation. But Sri Ramakrishna is ready to guide each person according to his choice. And God can be experienced in many ways. And all the ways are open. So, emphasis was the main point. And she said, this time it has not happened so. Because of this, he laid emphasis on all aspects of God realization. Now, if you have caught this point of emphasis, I will give another illustration in my life. In Chennai, 2020 February, the new temple was to be opened. And most revered Ranganathananji was to preside over the Parliament of Religions. But 10 minutes before the meeting was to start, I was ordered to preside over the Parliament of Religions. Then, one of the Swamis of Ramakrishna Mission was to talk on Neo Vedanta. The other Swami, well known to you, Swami Tyagananda, was to talk on Orthodox Hinduism, and many speakers. Now this Swami talking on New Vedanta said, Swami, mind you, the meeting is in celebration of the temple opening. But this Swami, with his gestures, you will recognize, I will not tell the name. Swami Vivekananda standing on the beach of California. You need not go to temples, you need not go to churches. Divinity is within you. And 7,000 people were little taken aback. In my presidential remark, I said, Holy Mother has said, mind you, emphasize, if you point, other points get suppressed. If you emphasize, you need not go to temples. It should not mean you should not go to temples. 7,000 people rose on their feet and clapped, and they felt relieved. So understand emphasis? Now, in order to illustrate my point, I introduce before you another personality which outside Maharashtra the world does not know. And that is the great Saint Shri Dnyaneshwar. My Guruji, now let me introduce, I have been talking about my Guruji. Mahapurush Maharaj's disciple, Swami Bhaskareshwaranandaji Maharaj, the first president of Nagpur Math from 1928 to 1976, he started the ashrama. He was the president and lived there for 48 years and left his body in 76. I am referring to him always. Now, Mahapurush Maharaj, when he sent him to Nagpur, he said, my boy, I am sending you to Maharashtra. When you go there, you study Dnyaneshwar. You will find there is perfection there. Now, this Saint Dnyaneshwar, his followers say his philosophy is different than Shankaracharya. Just like our young fellow thinking Thakur's is different, so and so is different. Dnyaneshwar Maharaj emphasized immanence of God. My Guru used to say again and again, transcendent, hyphen, immanent reality, one without a second. Hyphen, he said, you cannot say this and that, no and. They are the same thing. The same transcendent reality is immanent. Shankar lays emphasis on the transcendent aspect of that reality. Emphasis. Yesterday I showed you that he recognizes immanence wherever it comes. But his temperament, need of the age, he emphasizes transcendence. In the same way, Dnyaneshwar emphasizes immanence, absolute immanence. And Thakur emphasizes both equally. Sri Ramakrishna has repeatedly said, sometimes I stay with the Nitya, sometimes with the Leela. You understand? Nitya is the transcendent, Leela means the immanent. This is the difference, if any. Now, for emphasizing this, I will tell you some deeper secrets of spiritual life. I bring another personality into view now, Bhagwan Buddha. Now, the experience, realization of the absolute Brahman cannot be described in the words we all know. But the best description available in the whole world is in the 7th mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad. I read out the mantra first of all to you. Nanta pragyam, na bhish pragyam, na ubhayata pragyam, na pragyana ghanam, na pragyam, na apragyam, adrishtam, avyavaharyam, agrayam, alakshanam, achintyam, avyapadeshyam, ekatma pratyaya saram, prapanchopashamam, shantam, shivam, advaitam, chaturtham manyante, Sa Atma, Sa Vigyaya. Vigya, mind you. Vigyan we are going to talk later on. The word here is Vigyaya. Now, the first line tells us that he is not a particular state of the subject. The second line said he is not object. And then the positive indications are given Ekatma Pratyaya Saram. It has three meanings. Ek Atma Pratyaya Saram. I feel about my reality. If we can dive deep into this feeling, the source of this feeling, we will get at him. That is Eka Atma Pratyaya Saram. The other interpretation is, we have Jagruti, Swapna and Sushupti, but we feel that we are one in all these three. Now, if we can enter the source of this feeling, we will get at him. That is Ekatma Pratyaya Saram. The third interpretation is that the evolved man feels, I and you are same. I and the world is same. There is no difference between subject and object. That is Ekatma Pratyaya. And the essence of this Ekatma Pratyaya is the realization. Dhaneshwar Maharaj belonged to that part of Maharashtra. Those of you who have visited, I have not visited, but I heard, Ajanta or Ellora. In the Ellora cave, the central cave is called Kailash cave. There, from a single rock, it has been carved into the worshipper, the worship deity and the worship going on. Carved from one single rock. And Dhaneshwar Maharaj gives that example. He says, suppose that rock is conscious. What will be its consciousness? That the pujari, the puja and the pujita God are one. They are not different. This is Ekatma Pratyaya Saram. And people who have gone to Dhaneshwar Samadhi place, Alandi near Pune, they have realized this aspect there. I refer to Mahapurush Maharaj again. He realized in Alandi the seventh mantra, Mantra Drashta, and he said that Ekatma Pratyaya Saram was more shining than the other words. No, geographically I am not talking, because I am talking to the words here. Next is Prapanchopashamam. This is Bhagavan Buddha. He says, there the manifold does not exist, that much I say. Prapancham is the manifold world. Prapanchopashamam, it has gone away, it has subsided. About the reality, I can only say that the manifold is not there. Mahapurush Maharaj had this experience when he visited Bodh Gaya, remember. Then, Shantam. Shantam, I have two examples before me. Sarada Devi and Swami Saradananda. Nobody could disturb their peace for any reason whatsoever. One famous example is there. Holy Mother's brother's daughter, niece, Nalini. She used to quarrel with her husband and always say Ashanti, Ashanti, Ashanti. And Holy Mother was the head of that family, living amongst all these people. And she said, Nalini talks of Ashanti. I do not know what is this Ashanti. Remember, this is Shanti. Same was with Sardan Swamiji. The next word is Shivam. And the example is Shivananda, Mahapurush Maharaj himself. And then Advaitam. Yesterday I told you, Advaita never came in juxtaposition to Dvaita or Vishishta Dvaita. Advaita means no subject-object split. That is the meaning of Advaita. And this is Omkareshwar. Mahapurush Maharaj experienced this in Omkareshwar, the place where Shankar got his illumination. Now understand? All three realizations same, emphasis different. Shankar says, no subject-object split. Call it Nirguna or what you really call it. Buddha says, no manifold. Jnaneshwar says, I am one with you. Now, this is the great thing to understand, and we have the great good luck of getting it paramparaya from Mahapurush Maharaj. And that is why I told my Guruji, when you go to Maharashtra, study Jnaneshwar, there is Purnatva in him. Now, I hope you have caught the point of emphasis by now. No other difference except emphasis. Now I come to the next important point, which has been raised from the first day and which Shuddhayanji wanted me to speak on. Is this Vijnanam? And you ask the question whether Thakur's Advaita Vijnan and Shankar's Advaita is different or same. Let me first tell you what is Vijnan, then you will understand. Firstly, if somebody with his very, very, very limited knowledge has said that Vijnan is Thakur's original, I pity him. And I hope our monks or others' minds do not get polluted by that poison. Vijnana word appears throughout Shruti. How many places? Brihadaranyaka Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. Just now we say Vijnayam. So what is Vijnana? I will explain it to now. And for that, I take you to the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, Shankar Bhashya, many people do not give that value. It is the supreme value to understand all other scriptures. All of you must first read Bhagavad Gita Bhashya, Shankar Bhashya. There you will find place of karma, place of bhakti, place of yoga, place of jnana, everything there, comprehensive scriptures. Now, the 7th chapter, I will read the first 2 verses first. Maya saktamana partha yogam yunjanmadashrayah asamshayam samagram mam yatha gyasasi tachrunu jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshami asheshata yad gatva neha bhuyo nyad gatavyam avashishyate. Jnanam teham savijnanam. And Shankar says Vijnana sahitam Swanubhava yuktam. And in the 6th chapter, yoga has been described. And through the yoga, one has gone into the experience of Nirguna Brahma, Nirvikal Samadhi. Now more than majority of jivas, they will drop their body there and go into Brahman. But the qualified people, the purer people, will come back. And as soon as they come back, what they will say? They will say the same God which you experienced in Nirguna Samadhi is now appears as many. That very God, through names and forms, appears as many. So, Bhagavan is telling that I will describe to you now. That which people realize when they come back from Nirvikalpa Samadhi, I will tell you in the beginning itself. What will that do? So, Samagram Mam. Samagram Mam yatha gyasasi tachrunu. If you go to Nirvikal Samadhi, after that you will know me completely, Samagram, completely. That I am telling you now. Shankar says, Samagram means Vibhuti, Bala, Shakti, Aishwaryadi, Guna Sampannam Mam. This is Saguna Brahma. This is Ishwar. What else is there? After Nirvikal Samadhi, when you come down, you will see my form, Vibhuti, Bala, Shakti, Aishwaryadi, Guna Sanyuktam Mam Pashyasi. What happens? When the immanence of God is imprinted on our mind from Gita chapter 7 to 12, the result is Bhakti. Bhakti is born in us when we hear about all-pervading nature of God. And so, those wise people, they say Gita is divided into 3 parts. First 6 chapters, karma, along with Dhyan Yoga. Next 6 chapters, bhakti. And 13, 14, 15 are jnana chapters. 16, 17, appendix. 18, the summary of whole Gita from sadhana point of view. So, immanence of God, Shankara has beautifully told, what will you see? Vibhuti bala shakti aishwarya adi guna sampannam mam pashyasi. Now, the explanation of this, mind you, I request you again and again, appeal to you, please read Shri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga. There, in the first volume, in the Balya Jivan volume, in the very introduction, Sardan Swamiji has, this very thing he has put historically. Shall I read the Bengali lines or translate in English straight away? Because some people know Bengali, so let me read Bengali line, then I will put it in English. संयम तपस्यादि सहाये औपनिषदिक युगे मानव नेति नेति मार्गे अग्रसर होइया निर्गुण ब्रह्म उपासना साफल्य लाभपूर्वक समाधि राज्य होइते विलोम मार्गावलंबने अवतरण करिया समग्र जगत के ब्रह्म प्रकाश बोलिया जखन देखिते समर्थ होइलो तखने सगुण विराट ब्रह्म व ईश्वरेर प्रति तार प्रेम भक्ति उपस्थित होइया से तार उपासनाएं प्रवृत्त होइलो एवं तखने से तार गुण कर्म स्वभावादि संबंधे एक स्थिर सिद्धांते उपनीत होइया तार विशेष भावे अवतीर्ण होवाय विश्वासवान होइलो. English, with the help of self-control, tapasya, etc., in the Upanishadic age, man, through the Neti Neti Marga, proceeded in the upasana of Nirguna Brahman and became successful there. After that, from that Samadhi kingdom, Viloma Marg, by the reverse path, when he came down, he saw the whole world to be nothing but manifestation of Brahman. And then, when he became able to see the whole world as nothing but manifestation of Brahman, then only the Sagun Virata Brahma, Virat means all-pervading, Saguna means manifested, or same thing is called Ishvara. About that Ishvara, the love and devotion arose in him, and he proceeded in the upasana of that. And at that very time, he could understand the guna, svabhava, etc. He became rooted in a firm belief in the qualities and nature of this reality, and also that this Saguna Brahma, to protect the world, comes down as avatar. That also he could understand. Understood now? Vigyan, what is Vigyan? The knowledge of Saguna Brahma which comes after Nirguna Brahma's knowledge. This is Vigyan. Shankaracharya has very clearly commented here, Samagram mam yatha pasyasi tachruno Vigyanam swanubhava sanyuktam, that he sees God, the Nirguna God, as Vibhuti bala shakti aishwaryadi guna sanyapannam mam darshyasi. Please, this is Vigyan. And to say Sri Ramakrishna's original is Vijnana, most foolishness, nothing more than foolishness. Or I would say, the product of a fertile, infertile mind, very limited buddhi. You understand Vijnana now, all of you? And Sri Ramakrishna said, sometimes I am in Nitya, sometimes I am in Leela, And this is called Vijnana. Vijnana word is spread throughout all the Upanishads when you read that. And Vijnanam Anandam Brahma is the declaration. And this Vijnana is nothing but the manifestation. There is a mistake in those people. I told you what emphasis leads to. Shankar emphasized Nirguna, as a result of which his disciples, they said Nirguna alone is true, Saguna is something lower. There are two ways in which Saguna is experienced, mind you. On the way to Nirguna, Saguna is experienced. That is limited, because the experience of Nirguna is not there. That was Sri Ramakrishna's teacher, Bhairavi Brahmani. But the other Saguna is, after you experience Nirguna, you open your eyes, Viloma Marge, and you see the world as nothing but manifestation of Brahman. This is called Vijnana. There is no other meaning in the word Vijnana. 9th chapter, again, same thing. Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam, there also. And both places Shankar says it is an experience. Out of my experience, Bhagavan says, I am telling you, and through this, you will also experience if you get devotion. Please, at least our monks, do not be deluded by foolishness. I told you another thing yesterday, that people in the south ask me, has Vivekananda told something new? In the same tune they will ask, has Sri Ramakrishna told something new? Because they know Vivekananda more than Sri Ramakrishna, so they are asking. If he has told something new, we reject it out of Vedas. And if he has not told something new, what is there? To them my question is, has Shankar told something new? Reject it. And if he has not told something new, what is there? So all the Mahapurushas have this double role to play. First is, because the Nirguna Brahmajnan, the real absolute knowledge, has gone out of people's sight for centuries, they come up and rejuvenate it, restate it, and that becomes established firmly. Along with that, according to the need of the age, they emphasize certain points. And in Shankara's age, I told you, the Karma Kanda had become very prominent, or absence of God had become very prominent, and so he had to lay stress on Nirguna Brahma. That later on became, by his disciples, what Shankar we know? We know Shankar through Shankarites. And there we land with this difficulty. Nirguna and Nirguna only. But if I tell you again, intellect is nowhere near the Brahmagyan. Intellect is very small compared to understanding of scriptures. Understanding of scriptures as per Shankaracharya and as per all the teachers comes only through Guru's grace. I should not be bragging about me, but I told you on the first day you can call me a Brahmanishta sadhak. If you like, you can add a sadhak who has received Guru's grace. So I am telling you that this is Vijnana. Now tell me, Sri Ramakrishna is new, as old as the truth itself, and newly stated. Another point I want to bring it here. Amongst Sri Ramakrishna's disciples, nobody has criticized Shankaracharya. Though Swami Vivekananda sometimes says that he became one-sided, and that we have seen he has become one-sided. I will read out to you now from Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. 2 points. First is when he is discussing Maya. He says Maya has been misrepresented in many ways, and Maya has been correctly represented only in two places, Shatashatar Upanishad and Shankaracharya. Swami Vivekananda is telling Maya is correctly represented only in Shatashatar Upanishad and in Shankaracharya, mind you. Then, in the Jnana Yoga, there is a chapter, Cosmos in two parts, macrocosm and microcosm. In the microcosm lecture in New York, he is telling, the question was answered once for all, thousands of years ago, and through all subsequent time, it is being restated, re-illustrated, made clearer to our intellect. What we have to do, therefore, is to make a restatement of the answer. We do not pretend to throw any new light on those all-absorbing problems, but only to put before you the ancient truth in the language of modern times, to speak the thoughts of the ancients in the language of the moderns, to speak the thoughts of the philosophers in the language of the people, to speak the thoughts of the angels in the language of man, to speak the thoughts of God in the language of poor humanity, so that man will understand them for the same divine essence from which the ideas emanated is ever present in man, and therefore he can always understand them. This is Swami Vivekananda. Nothing new I am telling, he tells you. Restatement of the facts. Now, I refer to other disciples. And again I come to Mahapurush Maharaj because I know more about him through my Guruji. In the Shivananda Smriti Sangraha, you should read this. In presence of Mahapurush Maharaj, one brahmachari, some scholar has come from outside, and he is discussing with the brahmachari. And the scholar says, Shankar became mad after Advaita and has neglected bhakti totally. The brahmachari argued and showed to him it is not so. Shankar has sufficient bhakti in him. All in Mahapurush is listening. When the scholar went away, Mahapurush is telling that boy, my boy, you have told correctly. And how? Mahapurush was the interpretation. Shankar was an incarnation, and in incarnation bhakti has to be there, must be there, so what you have told is correct. This is Mahapurush's interpretation. Now I tell you another fact. Mahapurush Maharaj encouraged my Guruji. I told you that incident. When he went to him, he said, my boy, you must study the Upanishads. He said, Maharaj, wo Gatapata padhe ki hobe? What is the use of reading that Gatapata? Is it not the only thing to love God? Mahapurush Maharaj said, yes, my boy, the main thing is to love God, but take it from me, love requires a science, and Upanishads are the best bhakti shastras in the world, mind you. Mahapurush Maharaj, the Rishi, is telling, Upanishads are the best bhakti shastras in the world. And I will give you the proof of this. We learned Upanishads from that Guru. For us, that was the only explanation. We did not know of any other explanation. My friend, Prabhakarananda, he was month of the Gadadhar Ashram in Calcutta. He invited me there. That was my first Bengali lecture in my life. And he asked me to talk about Upanishads. I talked 1 hour. In his concluding remarks, he said, Aajke amra Upanishader Bhakti Mulak Vyakhya sunla. That day I understood that this is something different than what people say. So from Upanishad, if you do Jnana Chachadi, the way Mahapurush Maharaj told him, Upanishads are the best Bhakti Shastras in the world. How? I had a series of talks on this subject in the Chandigarh Ashrama. You understand now how. If you tell only Nirguna Brahma, bhakti will not rise. And if you tell only Saguna Brahma, bhakti will not reach its fruition. And Upanishads talk of Nirguna Saguna Brahma. And so the bhakti rises by immanent nature of God and reaches perfection only when you lose yourself, not till then. So another misconception that bhakti is in Dvaita only is terribly wrong. Sri Ramakrishna proved in his life. Sri Ramakrishna's dictum, you know, for all of you, tie Advaita knowledge in the knot of your cloth and do whatever you like. Do whatever you like does not mean steal and do things. Whichever sadhana you want to take, you take, but on the basis of Advaita knowledge. This is what Sri Ramakrishna has taught all the disciples. And in Sri Ramakrishna's life we see, we call him what? Avatar Varishta, Swami Vivekananda called him. But Swami Saradananda called him Acharyanam Mahacharya. That means he prepared all his disciples to be all-sided in life. There were some disciples who were worshippers of Nirguna Brahma. Swami Vivekananda was Nirakar only. He did not know Nirguna at that time. But Turiyan Swamiji, Akhandan Swamiji, Mahapurush Maharaj, they were all worshippers of Nirguna Brahma. And if you see Mahapurush Maharaj's room at the end of his life, Bakeshwari, Hamseshwari, this Shiv, that Shiv, as if they were his friends. All the Nirguna Brahma people, Sri Ramakrishna made them realize the Saguna aspect also. Swami Vivekananda, when he realized the Advaita, then Sri Ramakrishna, you know, Sri Ramakrishna taught Swami Vivekananda Ram Mantra, Kali Mantra. Swami Vivekananda became so much intoxicated in the experience of Rama that he were rounding and rounding the Kashipur garden house. Nobody was able to catch him. His other disciples went to Sri Ramakrishna and said, "This is what Narendra is doing." He said, "Physically catch him and bring him to me." When they caught and brought, he said, "You are feeling madness. I felt much more madness than you." And Swami Vivekananda's Ishtam was Kali, that you remember. In the Belur Math, on Thakur's birthday and Swami Vivekananda's birthday, in the night Kali is worshipped. So where do we go? Each disciple became complete, so that sadhakas of all different paths coming to them should get their fulfillment in life. That is Acharyana Mahacharya. So, I have told you up till now, emphasis point number 1. Point number 2, after Nirguna Brahma comes the experience of Saguna Brahma. That is called Vijnana, and Sri Ramakrishna emphasizes that equally with the Nirguna Brahma. আমি কখনো নিত্য থাকি, কখনো লীলায়. This is Sri Ramakrishna's Vijnana. And this Vijnana is throughout Upanishads. I was telling you, every time there is a mantra on Nirguna Brahma, the next line or within the same mantra the Saguna Brahma comes. And then we find a description, 8 or 10 mantras about Saguna Brahma. I refer to Brihadaranyaka, I refer to Mundak, all Upanishads are like that. And in the Mandukya Upanishad, Shankara makes a remark that unless both are told, the knowledge is not complete. And so, I hope all of us, especially our monks, are made free from that poison which has come in that book. Now, Saradan Swamiji in his Leela Prasanga we read, and he has never. Now recently what happened? Our Shuddhanan Swamiji knows. Sri Ramakrishna's last sannyasi disciple, as we know him, Swami Vijnanananda, in 1909, he translated Ram Gita into English and got it published in Bangalore in 1909. It was not known. But one day Advaita Ashram people suddenly found in Mayavati a print copy of that. And they have printed it again. And there is simply follow Shankaracharya. So, once you remember this point of emphasis, we will have no quarrel with anybody. Another thing I want to propose. In the Brahma Sutras, the fourth sutra is, you have to understand this, not by puny mind. Tattu samanvayat. Tattu samanvayat. That means, in the Vedas, Karma Kanda is there, Upasana is there, Jnana is there, apparently contradictory teachings are there. How to understand? Bayadara and Vyas says, you have to understand in that way in which everything will be harmonized. Samanvayat means everything will be given the right place and the final conclusion will be Advaita. That understanding only is correct where you find harmony. You apply this. I will remember a funny incident. Some years back, I was in Chandigarh, but I had gone to Chennai. And all the brahmacharis sat around me after night food. And this talk developed about Shankar and Swami Vivekananda. I told them, you start with the point that there is absolutely no conflict between Shankar and Vivekananda. And if at a particular, you start with this drishti, but if at a particular point you find a contrast, refer to Pitambarananda, that is what I said. I will be able to show you at every point there is no difference. Now, one more point I refer to here. Sri Ramakrishna preached harmony. Swami Vivekananda as his mouthpiece preached harmony. But I said that every man's message has a something for the time being. Seeing us Indians, akarmanya, lazy, not doing anything, he emphasized karma yoga. In India, for the necessity of the time, and by misfortune, we should not stick to that. You remember, if something is emphasized, others will get suppressed. I think I have talked enough about this. I feel pain when I see that the mission sadhus do only karma yoga. I propose here, I am requesting Shuddhidanji about it. Without reading Swamiji's Karma Yoga, we are Karma Yogis. In Karma Yoga, Swamiji is telling karma can never lead to perfection. He is telling there is nothing called independent Karma Yoga. All yogas are mixtures, blendings. They are not separate at all. So, if Shuddhidanji agrees, I wish to take a series on every Monday, whenever possible, in this very platform, on Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga. Now, I go to other points, and that points are, we resume our dealing with Shankara's life and his books. Now the funny thing is there, this person whom I am referring to without name, in his book he says, the dualists have conspired and introduced Vishnu Sahasranam Bhashya into Shankara's complete works. What to say? Madness? Now, Shrungeri and Kanchi, I do not know about the other two pithas, They have unbroken parampara from Shankaracharya, unbroken parampara. And Samatha publications, I referred to yesterday, Samatha publications have published complete works of Shankaracharya under or authorized by the Sringeri Math, under their supervision, under their stamp of authority. And there we find this Vishnu Sahasranam Bhashya. To say that Vishnu Sahasranam Bhashya, the dualists conspired and inserted in Shankara's complete verse, is perversion if nothing else. Perversion of thought, not only madness. Because the Akhanda Parampara shows that his book is there. And without reading that book, the author is talking. If you read that book, it does not deviate from Advaita at all. This itself is a misconception that for bhakti we require Dvaita. We do not require Dvaita for bhakti. Bhakti is the expression of the feeling that God is immanent everywhere. Automatically bhakti comes up and it reaches its fruition only when the I is lost in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, not till then. Now, from age 8 to 11, he lived with his Guru, we have said that. Guru asked him to go to Kashi, that we have seen. And Guru had commissioned him to write the bhashyas of all the Upanishads. For that he found that the atmosphere in Kashi is not suitable. He went to Badrikashram and there he wrote the bhashyas on all Upanishads. And yesterday I told you, to my mind it is there he met Vyasa, maybe in Kashi, but Vyasa took up the first sutra of the third part of Brahma Sutras and discussed with Shankar. Some biographers say 8 days, some say 18 days, bringing up hundreds of Purva Pakshas about it, and Shankar replied to everyone according to the Vyas, what Vyas wanted to think. So Vyas became, as his Guru became satisfied when he wrote the commentary on Vishnu Sahasranam, Vyasdeva became satisfied after discussing with Shankara one of his sutras, and then he said, my boy, you must write a full detailed commentary on the Brahma Sutras. For that, I am extending your life to 32. And I told you yesterday about how the Brahmajnas have the capacity to change anybody's lifespan. 8 became 16 because of his Atur Sannyas. 16 becomes 32 because Vyasa wanted him to do certain things. One of the things was this Brahma Sutra Bhashya. So again he composed it in Badrikadam, and then started his All India tour. And there are 3 types of literature Shankara has produced, not by your permission. Upanishad Bhashyas, Gita Bhashya, all Bhashyas. Second, independent treatises. Third, stotras. Wonderful stotras. To deny them is to deny half part of Shankaracharya. Such stotras, I believe, no Dvaiti can ever come. You compare any Dvaiti stotra, Mukundamala, and Shankaracharya's stotras. And where he composed this? During his India travel. When he went to Pandharpur, he composed the Pandurangashtakam. When he was in Devaprayag, though the biographies tell you differently, when he came to Devaprayag, you know there is a place Devaprayag. Bhagirathi is what the river Bhagiratha brought. It was not able to come to the plains, breaking the mountains. So another river comes, Alaknanda. Alaknanda gathers many rivers, Dhauli Ganga, Vishnu Ganga and all that, Mandakini, and at Devaprayag, Bhagirathi and Alaknanda meet, and then only it is called Ganga or Ganges. And it is very clear that Shankara has composed his Ganga Stotra standing at Devaprayag. In one stanza, Bhagirati, Janani Mate, Alakanande, Paramanande. So he is seeing Alakananda from this side, Bhagirati from this side, and composed Ganga Stotra. And strange thing, when he visited Allahabad, or he went along Yamuna for some time, and he has composed 2 stotras on Yamuna. And praising Yamuna as Krishna, having touched Krishna's feet and like that. And then Narmada, his patent river, because he met Omkareshwar Govindapad there. Later on again he visited that, and there he composed Narmada Stotram. He composed so many Devi Stotras, that I want to come later. But so many Stotras, Ardhanarishwar, if you don't consider, then you have not understood Shankaracharya. Beautiful Stotra. He is visualizing that half the body is Shiva, half the body is Durga. And he has composed a beautiful stotra on that. There is another Haragauri stotra, where Shiva and Durga are pressed together. And this is Ardhanari stotra. Now, so this is the third type of literature. One more stotra is famous. That is called Charpata Panjarika Stotra. One day while in his Pravraja, he found a man, very old, maybe 85 years, sitting near the river and trying to memorize a grammar rule. In Sanskrit grammar, Kri Dhatu stands for Karna, doing something. The formula is do. Do is not English do here, the grammar formula. Do Krui Karane. And he was memorizing Do Krui Karane, Do Krui Karane. And Shankar is telling him, in this old age, what hope you have? Better. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Prapte Sannihite Marane, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Do Krui Karane. Some very funny thing is coming to my mind. As a joke, as a light moment, please share it. We have a center in the place called Maliyankarane in Tamil Nadu. It was under Ramakrishna Mission Students Home Madras previously. Now it is an independent center. And one of brahmacharis working with us in Chennai was to be posted in Maliyankarane, was to be sent to Maliyankarane. And revered Pujyananji, if you remember him, Prabhakar Maharaj, he visited. And he is telling that brahmachari, purely a fun, he is telling that brahmachari, you have heard, Nai Nai Rakshati Dukrui Karane, Rakshati Rakshati Maliyankarane. If you go to Maliyankarane, it will save you. Dukrui Karane will not save you. Anyway, beautiful stotra. About that stotra, I want to tell you something. That is, there is another stotra also in Panjarika meter. Panjarika is a meter. That is called Dwadasha Panjarika, or the second name is Moha Mudgar. But generally people mix up. There is a famous record by the great singer M.S. Shivalakshmi. She has mixed up both these stotras. If you read them independently, Charpata Panjarika means torn clothes gathered from a street, made into a cloth. And 17 stanzas it has. Dwadasha Panjarika has 12 stanzas. Sometimes people mix up. Bhaja Govindam Stotra we know is the Drupad of Charpata Panjarika Stotra. Dwadash Panjarika is in the same meter, but there the Bhaja Govindam is not there. Anyway, in Allahabad Magh Mela and Kumbh Mela, All the ashramas play this record with Revered Ranganathanji's introduction and Shubhlakshmi singing Bhaja Govindam. So in the beginning we hear Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Ate Nama and then Bhaja Govindam. But it is a mixture. So I explained to you that this Stotra Rachana is evidently done in the places visited by him. Then my last point. Shuddhanji has not announced, but he has told me privately that today's session may go up to 7, he does not mind. So, my last point, very, very important point, and that is Shankaracharya's Tantra Sadhana. General Vedantis are not aware of this. But again, in the Kanchi Kamakoti website, I got a basis first of all. And the basis is, I wish to read out to you. It is a Vedanta Stotra, mind you, but this forms a basis of Tantra Sadhana. Please bear with me. I will read out the Sanskrit stanzas as well as the beautiful English translation made by the Kanchi Kamakoti authorities. Pure Pauran Pashyan Nara Yuvati Nam Akruti Mayan Suveshan Swarnalankarana Kalitan Chitra Sadrishan Swayam Saksha Drishte Tyapicha Kalayan Taisa Raman Munir Navyamoham Bhajati Guru Diksha Kshatatama. Seeing like pictures the people of the city consisting of men and young women of different forms, clad in attractive dress and decked with ornaments of gold, realizing that he is actually seeing them and mixing merrily with them, the sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. I think I read one stanza, let me read the English now. Next stanza. Seeing in the forest trees which bend their lovely heads with the weight of foliage and fruits, which spread thick shade and have ground groups of birds singing sweet, resorting to them by day for prayer and by night lying on the ground serving as bed, the sage, with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace, is not at all deluded. We have a similar experience from Swami Vivekananda. Let me read this first. Living sometimes in a palace, then somewhere in the mansions of the rich, at times on a mountain, and then somewhere on the banks of rivers, and sometimes in the hut of ascetics, rich in self-restraint, the sage, with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace, is not at all deluded. Shankara Stotra I am reading. It is called Jivan Mukta Nanda Lahari. Sporting somewhere in the company of boys with clap of hands, elsewhere in the company of young women full of laughter, and sometimes lamenting with aged folk, pensive with heavy hearts, the sage, with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace, is not at all deluded. Sometimes conversing with the learned and those keen on learning, sometimes with eminent poets, versed in poetic figures and sentiments, while at times with eminent logicians, prone to right reasoning and inferences. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Sometimes engaged in the practices of abstract meditation, sometimes in the worship of the Lord, in joy and humility, with fragrant flowers in bloom or with good petals and leaves, the sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Chanting the many names with tears of joy welling in the eyes, sometimes of the consort of Shiva, at times of Shambhu, sometimes of Vishnu, and then of Ganapati, and sometimes of the visible sun. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Bathing sometimes in the waters of the Ganges, sometimes with water drawn from the well, at times with the waters of the pond, and then with waters warm or cold, and then besmearing the body with ashes, white as camphor. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Sometimes in the waking state, operating well with the sense organs amidst the object of senses, at times in the dreaming state, enjoying also the object presented therein, and then in deep sleep, enjoying continuously the bliss of that state. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Sometimes clad in the quarters, that is nude, at times attired in costly robes, sometimes wearing the lion's or tiger skin around the waist, with restrained mind, in complete detachment, and gladdening the heart of the good. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Sometimes firm in Sattva Guna, and then motivated by Rajaguna, then influenced by Tamas, and later free from these three, then a man of the world, and lo, revealing anon in the realms of Vedic form. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Sometimes observing silence, at times active in worldly discussions, sometimes speechless, laughs all of a sudden in innate joy, and sometimes engrossed in observing the activities by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Sometimes shocking it will be for you. Sometimes transferring from his own mouth balls of rice into the open lotus-like mouths of the ladies present, and sometimes taking them from out of their mouths, and thereby declaring the unity where the distinction of one's own self and another is gone. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Living at ease somewhere in the company of Shaivas and elsewhere with Shaktas, and still in another place with the devotees of Vishnu or the sun, sometimes with Ganapati's worshippers, and thus with all difference gone, with the feeling of oneness. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Visualizing his own pure form of Shiva, sometimes as formless, and sometimes with form owing to association with gunas, sometimes looking on in wonder at these, and at times delighted within. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. Seeing everything as one, as ever existent and auspicious, and owing to the realization and practice of the import of the Mahavakyas, freed from the mistaken notion of duality, and always uttering the word Shiva. The sage with ignorance dispelled by Guru's grace is not at all deluded. If the blessed human being, immersing himself time and again in the lake of innate bliss, resorts to this state of liberation rooted in Supreme Shiva and attainable by the nectarine and graceful glance of the Guru, him the wise declare as a yogi, tyagi and kavi. Now, one point, Shankar is criticized for his narrowness in condemning women. Sri Ramakrishna is equally at fault. You read Gospel, other than God realization, the most frequently appearing word is Kamini Kanchan. So, both stand on the same footing there. When they are talking to men, instead of saying Kama, they represent the Kama in a pure form, in the form itself, Kamini Kanchan. So, in that sense, Shankara says, Kenesha Nirmita Mohini Nari. So, it does not mean it disrespect woman. Now, on that point I am telling you, when he debated with Mandan Mishra, who was the judge, you know? Mandan Mishra's wife, Ubhaya Bharati. She is supposed to be the incarnation of Saraswati. And he installed her image in the Sringeri Mutt and he worshipped there. So, now we come to his Tantra Sadhana proper. First of all, let us see how many hymns on Devi he has composed. Now, which one he composed at that point where the girl with the shava was standing, a Devi? That difficult to determine, but most probably it is Devi Aparadha Kshamapana Stotra. One is Shri Bhavani Ashtakam. Na tato, na mato, na bandhur, na data, na putro, na putri, na bhrutyo, na bharta, na jaya, na vidya, na vrittir mamayva, gatistam, gatistam, tameka bhavani. Beautiful stotra. Ananda Lahari. Bhavani stotum tvam pravoti chaturbhir na vadane prajanam ishanas tripura mathana panchavirapi na षड्भि सेनानि दशशत मुखैरपि अहिपति तदा नेषां केषां कथय कथमस्मिन् समञ्जसा. देवी स्तोत्राणि कल्याण वृष्टिस्तव गौरी दशकं देवी अपराध क्षमापन स्तोत्र. न जाने मुद्रास्ते तदपि च न जाने विलपनं परम जानम मातस्तदनुसरणं क्लेशारणम. Every stanza ends with the line kuputro jayeta kvachidapi kumata न भवति. Then beautiful stanzas, apparently dualistic. आपत्सु मग्ना स्मरणं त्वदीयं करोमि दुर्गे करुणार्णवेशि नैतत् षटत्वं मम भावयेथा क्षुधा तृषार्था जननीं स्मरन्ति. He says, when I land myself in difficulties, then I remember you. Plus do not think I am wicked, because only when hungry and thirsty, then the children shout for mother. So my appealing to you is like that. Jagadamba vichitramatra kim paripurna karunasti chenmayi aparadha paramparavrutam nahi mata samuvekshate sutam. What is strange in this Jagadamba, that though I am filled with aparadhas, you are never neglecting me. Matsama pataki nasti papagni tvat samanahi evam gyatva mahadevi yatha yogyam tatha kuru. There is no bigger sinner than me, there is no bigger redeemer of sin than you. You should do now what is yogya. So, now there are two stotras from him which I referred to from the first day. People ask me the meaning, and that is Saundarya Lahari or Ananda Lahari. Two stotras, some people say it is one, and there lies his secret of Tantra sadhana. I am not able to tell anything further about it, not having experience, but I understand that he performed Tantra sadhana and was perfect in that Tantra sadhana also. Yoga sadhana was very easy for him. Now I refer to in between that Swami Vivekananda has similar experience. In America, some old ladies, feeling Swami Vivekananda like a child, told him that, my son, please be careful. The young girls of our country are not good and they are looking at you with bad eyes. Swami Vivekananda gave two replies. Mother, if somebody looks at me with bad eyes, I see a Todd there, frog, not the girl. So don't worry about me. Secondly, he said, Mother, in India, I have lived in forest, alone, with farmers, with hermits, and also in king's palaces, where the whole night beautiful dasis were fanning me. Please don't worry about me. So, that is why we found in Shankaracharya. Further than this, I am not able to tell about his Tantra sadhana, but I know that he did that. He worshipped Kamakhya, the center of Tantra sadhana in Assam. There is a Kamakhya Devi near Guwahati, and there he worshipped the mother. So, I come to the end of my presentation on Shankara's life and teachings. People have asked me several questions, Brahma Sutra, this and that. This is not the forum for that. This is not the occasion for that. My idea was to present to you the harmony between Shankaracharya and Sri Ramakrishna or Swami Vivekananda. And my idea was to present you that though Shankara lays emphasis on Nirguna, he does not deny Saguna. And if he criticizes women, Sri Ramakrishna also does so. And the Vijnana we talk of Sri Ramakrishna's original is spread throughout Upanishads, and especially in the 7th and 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where the immanence is called Vijnana. And immanence is reserved for those special mortals, because those jivas, they vanish into reality at the realization point. But the specially pure souls, they come back and they have the full realization, as told in the Gita, Yada bhuta pruthak bhavam ekatvam anupashyati tata evacha vistaram brahma sampadhyate tada. When they see the multiplicity gone into oneness, and from that oneness everything has come out, then only they have realized Brahman. And this state is called Vijnana. And this Vijnana was very common with Sri Ramakrishna, because he emphasized the transcendence and immanence equally. That is the only difference. And so we find that whole thing boils down to what Holy Mother has taught us, emphasis. Now, in our life, we should not lay emphasis on anything. We should, if we want to lay emphasis somewhere, it should be on the harmony. If harmony itself is emphasized, there will be no quarrel in the world. So all the religious quarrels will vanish following Sri Ramakrishna if we emphasize the harmony itself. There is no special Vijnana in Sri Ramakrishna. It is the same Vijnana which is in the Gita 7th and 9th chapter. It is the same Vijnana throughout Upanishads, that immanence of God is called Vijnana. Transcendent immanent reality, one without a second, Namah Parama Rishibhyo, Namah Parama Rishibhya. Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. One small point, please. The last of his composition is Viveka Chudamani. And some people say Viveka Chudamani is not by him. All his heart he has poured into Viveka Chudamani. And there he has described the Jivan Mukti at great length. Okay, thank you. Yes, Shuddhanji.
So Maharaj, today in last 3 days talks, what I would like to say is it has been eye-opening for various reasons. In fact, in our Ramakrishna Bhavadhara, in the recent times we find many different kinds of narratives, new narratives coming up. In our attempt to understand Sri Ramakrishna, sometimes people try to interpret him completely leaving aside the tradition, the parampara, as you have so much stressed on that point. And sometimes there have been people who have been interpreting Sri Ramakrishna in the light of the great ancient tradition. So in last 3 days talks, Maharaj, you have excellently laid stress on these vital points for all of us to clearly understand the importance of Sri Ramakrishna's life and the life of Sri Shankaracharya. So Maharaj, it has been extremely illuminating, inspiring, and it has cleared many of the prevalent wrong notions with regard to Shankaracharya. I was reminded about one incident. In your talks when you were talking about that, did Sri Ramakrishna speak anything new? Did Swami Vivekananda speak anything new? Did Shankaracharya ever speak anything new? In recent times, when I had an opportunity to participate in a seminar, and that seminar was related to Sri Shankaracharya, a very eminent scholar there, he was speaking. He made a very beautiful observation. I still remember, and I'm just reminded of that, and I'm seeing how wonderfully it explains all that you have been so emphatically presenting in last 3 days talks. He makes a difference between a typical Indian spiritual mind and spiritual attitude versus the typical Western research mind.
Yes, correct.
And he says, very beautiful thing he had pointed out, he says that in the West, anybody who is doing a research, unless he presents something new, his research work has got no validity, and his research work never gains currency in society. Whereas in India, the great masters, all the great thinkers, whenever they present some idea, if they present something new, they are rejected. Rather, all the great masters in India have always been saying one thing, that whatever I am saying, I am just repeating what the great masters have told before. So this is a very radical, two different approaches which we find. One is the Western research attitude, which always wants to present something new, and they want to make such things current in society. Whereas all the great Indian spiritual thinkers, I'm reminded of the Upanishads, which says that iti shushma purvesham yanastat vichachakshire.
Yes.
Upanishads says these things, that what I am saying, I am not saying anything new. What the great masters have said in the past, I am saying that. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, we find Bhagavan himself saying, so evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana. Bhagavan Sri Krishna says that I am just repeating what is that ancient yoga, Puratana yoga. When we come down to Bhagavan Buddha, we have heard that Bhagavan Buddha always said that Esha Dhamma Sanatana, Esha Dhamma Sanatana. The dharma which I am preaching, it is the Sanatana Dharma. Coming down to Sri Shankaracharya, we see that the same thing, such a brilliant Medha, about which Swami Vivekananda says that his writings are the real marvels of the modern world. Such brilliant writings, such Medha, but just look at the humility of this person. whatever he states, he keeps his observations subservient to the utterances of the Upanishads. He never says that I am saying something. He always draws the validity from the Shruti, from the statements of the Upanishads. And coming down to Sri Ramakrishna, as you so beautifully and so emphatically pointed out, Sri Ramakrishna never stated that I have told something new. So in this way, Maharaj, you have been very beautifully presenting these ideas to all of us, and especially what you spoke about Vijnana. Many people have been talking about this to be something new, and that point also has been very beautifully clarified today. And Maharaj, I would just like to read out one observation made by Sister Nivedita, and this would be very relevant to this 3 days session. Sister Nivedita, first of all, I want all the devotees to understand that just like Swami Vivekananda was molded by Sri Ramakrishna for Sri Ramakrishna's special mission, in the same way, Sister Nivedita was molded by none other than Swami Vivekananda for his work. So in Sister Nivedita, in all her beautiful writings, we actually get the ideas of Swami Vivekananda. So that is the first thing we need to keep in mind when we read the works of Sister Nivedita, because whatever she writes, she had heard all this from Vivekananda's own mouth. So Nivedita makes a beautiful observation about Sri Shankaracharya, and this portion comes from the Web of Indian Life in volume 2 of Sister Nivedita's works. In this Web of Indian Life, she states, the great tide of vigor that emanated from Shankaracharya swept round India by south, west, and north in a spiral curve. She says that the great Advaita movement, this vigorous Advaita movement which Shankaracharya started, it swept across India. Then she says, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Ramdas and Tukaram, the Sikh gurus, and Gauranga were all in turn its products. They were all the products of this great Advaita movement which Shankaracharya had initiated. Then, coming down to Sri Ramakrishna of the 19th century, she says that the personality that the 19th century has revealed as the turning point of the national development is that of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, whose name stands as another word for the synthesis of all possible ideals and all possible shades of thought. This is a very beautiful and significant observation coming from Sister Nivedita. She says that Sri Ramakrishna is the another name for synthesizing of all the shades of thoughts and all the different ideals. And then, finally, she concludes, she says that in this great life of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, the philosophy of Shankaracharya is clothed upon with flesh. It's a beautiful point, where Nivedita says, if we take the philosophy of Shankaracharya and clothe it with flesh, what we get is Sri Ramakrishna. This is what Nivedita wants to say. What can be a better observation as far as the relationship of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Shankaracharya is concerned? If Shankaracharya's philosophy is taken and if it is clothed with flesh and blood, that is what we get in Sri Ramakrishna. One more question we can raise in this very context. If in Sri Ramakrishna we find Shankaracharya's philosophy in flesh and blood, what do we find in Shankaracharya? Anything new? This is the question. In Shankaracharya, what do we find? If we take the very core ideas of the Vedas and cloth it with flesh and blood, that is what we get in Sri Shankaracharya. Now see, if we just go into the root of this whole issue, we find that both Sri Shankaracharya and Sri Ramakrishna are the Veda Murtis It is the basic core ideas of the Vedas and the Vedanta that has taken the flesh and blood form of Sri Shankaracharya and Sri Ramakrishna. So it is very significant to understand the tradition, the parampara, as you have repeatedly emphasized in your talk. And this is where we lose sight. When we lose sight of our great parampara and tradition, then we tend to look upon Sri Ramakrishna as something distinct. And that is the beginning of sectarianism, which Swami Vivekananda so strongly warned about, that be very careful, do not create a sect out of Sri Ramakrishna. So Maharaj, I am extremely thankful for this 3-day, very illuminating and eye-opening session. I have no words. I am very sure that this 3-day talks will be a reference point for anybody who wants to understand the glorious life of Sri Ramakrishna as well as the glorious life of Sri Shankaracharya, their connection, and the whole Rishi Parampara, Brahma Vidya Parampara. And definitely it has been eye-opening from various standpoints. Maharaj, I very humbly express my gratitude for this wonderful presentation, and I'm sure all the devotees have been benefited, and all the sadhus also, they will be definitely illumined by this great talk. So dear devotees, I would like to make a small announcement here that as revered Swami Pitambaranji Maharaj has said, that very soon we shall start a weekly class on Karma Yoga as Maharaj himself has proposed. We shall try to do it in the month of November. So this is a tentative program now. The details of that, we shall work it out and we shall make an announcement of that. So most probably in the month of November, we can hope to commence a series of lectures by revered Swami Pitambaranji Maharaj on a weekly basis, and we invite all of you to be benefited by that. Yes, Maharaj, you want to say something?
University classes, please you tell.
And Maharaj has been conducting regular classes in the university. He has been taking the classes on Aparoksha Anubhuti, which for the time being is suspended, and it will be resumed in the month of November. In the chat here, we have given the details of the classes which Maharaj is taking. You can just go to the chat and you can see we have given the time, the days when these classes are being held. Please refer to the chat message. So Maharaj, with this, I once again offer my Sashtang Pranams to you and my heartfelt regards to all the devotees who have so nicely participated without, they have helped us in conducting this program flawlessly and without any interruption. Thank you to all and my Sashtang Pranams to Maharaj. Maharaj, Pranam Maharaj.